hair's wet, I can know who got here last. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you so much for coming. We're going to just start the meeting. They're going to do something with the minutes, and then I'll turn it over to you. And if you'd like to introduce yourselves or say a few words, you're welcome to. Don't have to. Completely up to you. Thank you. And I'm so grateful that you're here. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the New Canaan Board of Education this Monday, May 5th, 2025. If you could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Great, thank you. Next, can I get a motion to approve the agenda for May 5th? Julie, second. Brendan, all in favor? That's great, thank you. And can I get a motion, please, to approve the minutes of April 21st, 2025? Brendan, second. Phil, all in favor? Excellent, thank you. Next up, we have a student spotlight, the NCHS Orchestra String Quartet.
Hi guys, so we are a quartet of musicians from the New Canaan High School Orchestra, and we're playing a piece called Tessellations. So if you guys don't know, because I didn't know when we started playing this piece, a tessellation is like a repeated pattern of shapes, and that's what the piece is meant to sound like. So I hope you guys enjoy.
so much.
Could you just introduce yourselves and tell us what grade you're in? At the mic?
Hi, everybody. My name is Ben Kim. I'm a senior here, and I play the viola.
My name is Melissa Phillips. I'm a senior here also, and I play the violin.
My name is Claire Helene Ritter. I'm a junior, and I play the cello.
I'm Niyathi Iyengar, and I'm also a junior, and I play the violin.
Wonderful.
great,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
I enjoyed it. Thank you. A great way to kick off a meeting, huh? Awesome. So next up, comments from the public. To ensure the public's right to be heard, board set aside time during the meeting for public comments. 2 minutes allotted to each speaker, a maximum of 15 on each subject. Would anybody like to approach the board? All right, seeing there are none, we'll move on to reports and recognition, starting with the technology update with Mr. Salvestrini.
Good evening. It's hard to follow that, so I'll do my best. That was wonderful. Thank you all for the opportunity to share this technology update with all of you this evening. Before we begin, I just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone that contributed to this presentation. That includes teachers, administrators, and especially curriculum coordinators and directors. These instructional leaders work at the intersection of technology and education and work tirelessly to make sure that technology has the right best place in the learning process for both teachers and for students. So I wanted to thank them all for their contributions. As we begin, it's important to emphasize that technology serves a very specific purpose in education: to enhance learning by providing access to tools and experiences that support deeper understanding, creativity, and personalized learning. Thoughtful use of technology empowers students to explore ideas, collaborate meaningfully, and demonstrate their thinking in authentic ways. But we're also very keenly aware of the growing ubiquity of technology, both in and out of our schools, and the importance of balance. Technology remains just one part of a well-rounded educational experience. It's no substitute for the power of hands-on exploration, social interaction, and critical thinking. So with that in mind, I was thinking of my opening comments. I realized it's going to be really hard for me to provide all of you a technology update without this presentation feeling like technology is everywhere and all at once. This is most certainly not the case. In the preparation for tonight, I spoke extensively with teachers and students and curriculum leaders about technology and how it supports learning in grades K through 8. And it became very clear to me that our staff values and prioritizes active, interactive learning experiences first and foremost. And because of this, they very carefully choose if and when technology is used to support the learning process. What I'm going to delve into now is some highlights of that learning. This presentation focuses on technology utilization, K-8, as I mentioned, and I chose to break down how I share this information in 3 different levels: K2, 3.5, and 6.8. At each of these intersections, aspects of learning changes and evolves, and the technology needs to do so as well. At each level, I hope to illustrate several things. First of all, key tools employed to organize and manage technology used by students and teachers. Next, a cross-section of where technology is applied in different curricular areas, and highlights of specific software tools that we have worked so hard to include into our budget. And lastly, several examples of this technology applied to help illustrate what it looks like for students in the learning environment. In grades K through 2, technology is used only in specific and targeted ways that support the developmental needs of our youngest learners. When teachers choose to use technology, they may utilize a learning management system that we call Seesaw. You have some snapshots here. It's a learning platform that is well suited for this age group. I may have mentioned it to you all in the budget processor before. For students, it offers developmentally appropriate design, a clear and visual interface that even our youngest learners can pick up very quickly and navigate independently. Students can tap, draw, take photos, record audio, and as they do so, they build confidence as readers and writers and learners. For students that are still developing literacy skills, it gives every child a way to express themselves, regardless of their reading or writing levels. For teachers, it provides them a resource where they can quickly listen to voice reflections of students, see how their students are working their way and thinking their way through the learning process. Such a valuable insight when teachers want to try to be available to students, and can be hard to get through paper-based work left alone. It also provides teachers a platform to provide feedback, either by text or audio, or tailor feedback that it can be distributed to the whole class, some, or just one. Here's an example of an instance where a student used Seesaw to share their writing and how they planned their way through creating a sentence. The teacher wanted to know not only to see how the student could structure a sentence, but wanted to get an idea of the strategies that the child used to formulate the sentence correctly. I want to highlight that the student wrote and illustrated the sentence first, and then selected a tool where they could take a picture and record their voice and share their writing with their teacher.
I see the wolf. I used capital letter. I used finger space.
In this slide, it provides a sample of different ways that teachers deliberately select digital tools to amplify core curricular objectives. You'll see the subjects listed on the left, the unit or focus area in the center, and examples of technology tools are listed on the right with some of the icons that you could expect to see on the bottom. So you'll see, for example, reading is supported through digital tools that provide appropriate level text for students, supports research. Students can use tools in writing to get formative feedback, as I showed you before, and also to orally rehearse and publish stories. In science, students can use tools like Smithsonian simulations to safely test phenomena like light and shadow, making abstract concepts a little bit more concrete for students and providing conditions that we could not very easily replicate within the classroom. World Language uses things like choice boards delivered via Seesaw to let students practice basic vocabulary through songs, images, voice recordings, etc. Again, it's worth emphasizing in conversations and visits to K-2 classrooms and with teachers, students are not on technology all day. Devices are in the back of these classrooms or in iPad bags until they are needed for specific learning activities. There actually can be days where students engage in learning without any access of technology at all. Here are a few examples of when they do. In the upper right of this slide, you'll see a little GIF of a simulation which allows us students to test out which light might best illuminate a completely dark space. Student agency is supported through choice boards, which you can see in the bottom left, which provide multimodal activities like drawing, charades, weather reports, etc., where students can choose from a menu of listening, speaking, and drawing activities. We have interactive math practices that fit within the investigations curriculum. This 5-in-a-row activity, as you see in the bottom right of the screen, lets students roll virtual cubes and place sums on a game board. With this sample, I wanted to make sure that I emphasize a point. All teachers have and use first hands-on manipulatives. So these applications are not meant to take the place of actually having students work with dice and chips and other manipulatives to help them develop their understanding, but it's meant to be a supplement, a follow-on as needed in the classroom. In research, you see in the upper right-hand corner, a student is taking notes and using a digital resource where they can actually get nonfiction resources that they can use to develop their note-taking. One of our writing standards in kindergarten focuses on narrative storytelling. Here I'm going to play for you 2 examples. The first one is going to be an image of a kindergartner who's just learned about something which we call a small moment storytelling. They've drawn a picture of their weekend adventure, but they're still working on writing full sentences. They used that tool that I described before, Seesaw. They tapped a microphone and narrated their story in their own words and then shared it with their teacher.
I want to tell the world I scored a goal in soccer on my first day of soccer game.
So that's September of kindergarten. And already that child feels like an author. He feels empowered, and he's already telling his own story. The next example I want to share with you is a portfolio for that same student that the teacher was able to collect through Seesaw over the course of the year. Now this GIF scrolls through, it's reverse chronological order. So if you'll see the writing, this is in, I think that was January, this is November. And then it will go all the way back to September, here, which is the same image that I showed you before. When I talked to teachers, they said it's so valuable to have this digital portfolio. Of course, they have the hard copies as well, but when you're looking and trying to reflect and prepare for conferences with students or provide feedback, teachers found this digital portfolio so very valuable as they do their work at home, etc. It certainly doesn't replace pencil and paper work. It extends young writers' abilities to share their story and grow as confident communicators. Wait a second. So now let me keep going to focus on grades 3 through 5. As students move into grades 3 through 5, their cognitive and organizational skills mature, which allows us to introduce more robust tools that support deeper creation, collaboration, and independent learning. iPads are traded in for Chromebooks. And Google's G Suite for Education becomes a tool, a cornerstone tool of productivity and collaboration. Starting in 3rd grade, we explicitly teach students how to use docs, sheets, slides, etc., and manage their Google Drive to become productive communicators. We shift from Seesaw to Google Classroom. Students are now juggling more than multiple subjects and due dates. Google Classroom becomes their digital binder, where they can easily find information and assignments, submit work, and gather feedback from their teachers. ClassLink Launchpad, which is a snapshot of you see in the bottom right, is our one-stop shop for the applications that I'm going to share that are carefully curated for students at that age level, which I'll share a little bit more with you in the next slide. And also we have GoGuardian, which allows teachers to actually monitor student screens in real time in the classroom when they are actually on the devices. The teachers can see, as this, you can see a couple of thumbnails right there in a sample class. The teacher can see all of the Chromebooks that are open. They can manage what they see. They can whitelist specific resources. They can send a message to individual students, or they can actually turn off their devices as well. Okay. So in grades 3 through 4, the devices are in school, and they are stored in the back of the classroom. Currently, in 5th grade, the devices go back and forth with students to and from school. We heard your feedback as a part of the budget process and asking us to think a little bit more and do a little bit more inquiry on the use of those 5th grade Chromebooks. And we've had conversations with teachers, and looking at next year, these devices will also be stored at the back of our classrooms, but they'll be available for students to take home if and when they're needed for homework and for learning. So again, this is similarly formatted to the TASU slide. In grades 3 through 5, these digital tools and platforms help deepen subject area learning and foster student agency. We're trying to build student independence and interdependence. So I'm just going to highlight a few of the tools we use in reading and writing. Tools like Newsela, Common Lit, Wonderopolis offer both nonfiction and evidence-based text for students. And also tools like Wonderopolis give students, develop a passion for the students to pursue a topic that they want to dive into and research. In math and science, we use tools like Polypad and CoSpaces VR, where students actually create virtual reality experiences to reflect their learning of science. And in world language, they use tools like Google Forms, Google Slides, and Social Studies and Social Studies Weekly as well to bring current events and historical topics to life. These tools are meant to amplify students the standards-based work that students are doing in these subjects. And the students move from consuming content to creating, analyzing, and collaborating with their peers. So here's a collage again of real classroom moments and applications that students are using. In the upper left and the bottom left, those are snapshots of a camera trap lesson in grade 3. Students look for patterns in camera trap data that they've taken, pictures that they've taken from the woods to identify mammals living in the woodland habitat nearby. By digitizing the images into a slide deck, students are able to zoom in on the pictures and gather evidence. The bottom picture, you'll see it's a perimeter area and polygon assessment. This is a formative assessment that they give to students through Google Forms. The digital format of this question, it's intentional. It's to provide students experience transposing from the screen to paper and pencil, which echoes SBAC assessment-like experience for our kids. And the digital format also gives teachers immediate feedback to plan for follow-up instruction. Resources in the top right corner are images of texts that have been curated for students, utilized as part of ELA and social studies. There are collections that can be curated for teachers, for example, in that humor slide or image in the top right. And it gives students instant access to a wide range of texts and resources that would be otherwise very difficult to offer students in the classroom. Moving on to grades 6 through 8, our students continue to use the same core systems, Chromebooks, Google Classroom, ClassLink, and GoGuardian, but in ways that align with their growing independence and critical thinking skills. In these grades, students transition into a rotating schedule, moving from one dedicated subject class to the next requires that our students take their technology with them. It's just the most efficient way for them to have the tools available to them when they need them. This is the way our learning ecosystem supports deeper, faster-paced work in each discipline. So starting in grade 6, technology is a tool that's regularly used as a part of students' homework and assessment experience. Building on the foundational skills from K-5, grades 6 or 8 deepen both the complexity of our tasks and the independence of our learners, while continuing to use the same trusted tools and platforms that I've talked about previously. So for example, in ELA, each unit in grades 6 through 8 includes a writing power standard requiring students to take a piece of writing through the writing process. This includes brainstorming, drafting, revising, editing, and publishing. In this process, students typically write drafts or complete research by hand. Starting with the 6th grade research process, students use online resources to gather research as they develop some note-taking and citation skills through online databases. When students move towards a second draft, they typically move to using Google Documents to type their work, share it with their teacher, and receive feedback. Additionally, students showcase and share their writing through technology resources such as Slides, Canva, Google Sites, etc. To highlight another area in world language, technology is leveraged across all language classes, French, Spanish, Latin, and Mandarin, to support vocabulary development, cultural exploration, collaboration, and communication. Students use digital tools to engage with authentic materials, and the devices enable students to create multimedia projects and presentations in their target language. In visual and performing arts, technology enhances both visual and performing arts by streamlining access to materials and enabling and supporting the creative process. So as before, I wanted to highlight a couple of different actual scenarios here. This is the 7th grade Greek mythology unit. Students use technology by choice. They don't have to use technology as a part of their final performance task. They work in groups to design a museum exhibit. Some groups, for example, use WeVideo to produce a small play or a podcast. Others create newspaper articles on their computer. Some students chose to use 3D printers to create their objects, while others use other materials to do so. Just as a side note, in an overlap with innovation, they follow the design thinking process all the way through this as well. In math, in grade 8, these are geometry students investigating the properties of circles, tangents to solve problems. In this class, students start off by formulating their thinking collaboratively using whiteboards, which is that picture all the way to the right. This echoes some of the shared learning that teachers are doing with the Building Thinking Classrooms book that they're reading together. Then, after they've started to formulate their thoughts and their process, they use tools like GeoGebra and Desmos to investigate the characteristics of inscribed angles, triangles, and quadrilaterals. Through these different investigations, students are trying to discover a theorem, okay? And the theorem, and I'm quoting here because I don't know the theorem, I'm just being honest. If one side of an inscribed triangle is the diameter of the circle, then the triangle is a right triangle, and the angle opposite the diameter is the right angle. I'm assuming that's all right. This is another great example of where students are starting with non-technology experiences and then using the tool to support their what they're focused on, what the learning objective is. This slide shows students are conducting a bounceability experiment. They're dropping different balls from measured heights. They use Google Sheets to record, graph, and analyze the data, so they can visualize patterns and draw evidence-based conclusions. So this is the work without the technology, right? This is how they take the data, and they use the Google Sheets to try to make sense of it. In addition to this example, students use vernier probes, simulation, motion sensors, etc., to collect data, and such as seeing temperature, the change of speed, etc. Some different simulations help students grapple with energy transfers or orbital models, helping make abstract concepts more tangible. For sharing their work, they create digital portfolios, documenting experiments like the hot chocolate challenge that they do. These tools let students measure and model an experiment and communicate in ways that paper and pencil can't, preparing them for true scientific inquiry. This was another example that I wanted to share with you. I thought it was really compelling because it started with a teacher recognizing that her students, she pursued a topic of imperialism in grade 7. They used a Socratic seminar approach, and she would recognize that there were certain students that were not engaging in the conversation in the seminar as much as their peers were. It's understandable, but she was looking for a strategy to be able to try to help create equal opportunity for every student to share their thinking. This teacher collaborated with one of our technology integrators and utilized a tool called Parlay, where students actually had an opportunity to use the platform and enter their thinking and share their thinking before they engaged in the Socratic seminar. What I'll play for you here quickly is a snapshot of the entries from the students. So here now, rather than having a few students dominate the conversation, every student had an opportunity to not just contribute their thoughts, but then to respond to the thinking of peers. What the teacher was provided, when you can see a portion of it to the right, was a word cloud, which is slightly overlapped by the GIF there, of the frequency of words used by students in that online exchange. But then also there was a comment chord, which is that circle there you see at the right. And those, it's a little bit difficult to see, but each of those letters around the outside of that circle represents one of the learners in the room. The teacher can see where those exchanges, the strength of those exchanges between one student and another through the use of this platform. So that tool helped really foster this opportunity for all students, not just to share, but to provide feedback to their peers. Yep, sorry. I wanted to make sure to share some of the standards that are addressed in our curriculum. As you can see, many of them explicitly identify ways that students should be leveraging technology to analyze, to construct, to share, and to produce information, all of which are many examples I had provided previously. I won't go into the standards, but they're reflected in both the Connecticut Core Standards, Next Generation Science Standards, ISTE standards, etc. Within our curriculum documents, we actually have a space where we map the connection, the digital activity back to these standards, so we can ensure that technology amplifies our curricular goals and building literate, numerate, and scientifically curious students. So I warned you all it was going to feel like a lot, right? So one of the things I tried to do is I wanted to try to take a snapshot of a day in the life. So what would it look like for a student to go through their learning day through the lens of, so where's the technology, how's it used, and what does it look like? I chose a sixth grader, because in K4 the iPads are in the back of and the laptops are in the back of the classroom. And this is really for the first grade where students are carrying the technology with them from the beginning of the day through to the end. So what I'm going to, so this student's day starts with ELA. In this classroom, students were working to develop their own endings to a short story of their choosing. They were provided the opportunity to choose from one of 4 different incomplete short stories. The class started with partner teams, reviewing and identifying various story elements with focusing on character. Much time was spent in this collaboration where one individual was sharing what they had found, the different story elements with their peer. They worked together to analyze story elements such as plot points, exposition, rising action, character traits, etc. They worked with a partner to compare notes, to strengthen their notes, to improve them if they saw the opportunity. And then finally, what they did at the very end of the class, only the last 10 minutes of the class, they tried to synthesize this information, filling out a graphic organizer, thinking forward to how they might want to start to formulate the new ending of the story. In period 2, the students, this student went to French. In this class, they were asked to read, highlight, and respond to text in the target language. The only time that a laptop opened, and it was rare, was when a student needed assistance with pronunciation or translation of a specific word. Since not every student needed support for the same word, it was flexibility where the student could open the laptop, went to a specific resource, and then they could get assistance with the word they needed or the pronunciation that they needed. This was the only time that the tool was used, and it would usually be for a one-off type of experience. In social studies, students were engaged in a DBQ, or document-based question. Here, students were learning to develop an evidence-based argument, not an opinion, through deep analysis of a variety of documents. Now, these documents were print, and they were also video. So in this class, technology did serve as a key note-taking and organizational tool. But the pictures that I have here, first it started off with conversation. So you'll see here in this classroom that the students, you can't really see because it's a small picture, but the class started with discourse. All right, and what I want to highlight here is how the teacher managed the devices that the students had. So the students had them at their ready because they know they needed them to take a note, etc. But the strategies that the teacher had where they were closed or put them closed, half clamshell type of strategy, the teacher used at the times where he felt he needed to make sure that they were off the tech, focused on the conversation, but it was ready for when they needed to be able to jump back into the tool. For example, one of the students needed to analyze, one of the things that the students need to analyze for homework was a video. So they needed technology for that homework. But when they came back together, they started by having a conversation about it and working with peers, that's the second picture you have up there, to share what their findings were. Students opened their laptops at 2 key points in the lesson. Both were after there was a significant conversation and planning. And the reason that they did so was to draft a claim based on the notes that they had gathered. Okay? Next class was math. Again, the class started with no technology at all. Here, students were reactivating prior knowledge, as we call it, where they were started off with a do now to try to start that spark back up and get them into the thinking about the distributive property. And then the teacher led a conversation about the different ways that expanded, simplified, and distributive property could show the same information. What the first half of this class, the 20 to 25 minutes, was this. Instruction by the teacher. You'll see in that picture the teacher is actually circulating throughout the class to listen into the conversations that the students are having at their table sets about their developing understanding of how expanded, simplified, and distributed property show the same information. Right? But then what they were doing, she showed them how to use this tool called Polypad to actually work through how they would express the distributive property. Next class was robotics, and you may be surprised that these pictures here, there was no laptops used at all. Okay, in this lesson, students were assembling the chassis for their automated robot that they would program later. So students were working collaboratively in in teams to assemble the bot, to make sense of the brain, plug in the brain, and make sure it was functioning correctly. There were no laptops being used throughout the entire lesson there. In art, students were being introduced to a new unit of study on felt landscapes. Again, in this lesson, throughout the entire lesson, no technology was used at all. The only time the teacher used the technology was to present the learning objectives to the students. She then proceeded to go into detail about what are the techniques that you would use to create a felt landscape. And lastly, the last class of the day, students with science, where students were diagramming the matter and energy pyramids for an aquatic ecosystem. Students had a choice in this class to use either paper or pencil or computer to take these notes. In this case, most students chose paper. So I think I want to take a moment to emphasize that, first of all, I hope you see the balance, that in no way would I say that technology was used for the majority of the day. In fact, I would think it would be, I would say it was for a small fraction of the day. But in each of these cases, I walked out of the classroom knowing that the teacher, it was purpose-driven. The teacher had select times where when they chose to use the tools, they were open. Not only was it did the teacher choose when they would use the device, but what was being done on the device was very purposeful. This wouldn't be possible if we had devices on carts in the back of the room. As I was thinking about this slide, I remembered the conversation we had about the classroom coaches and how they work so well with teachers to help them make the most use of their time within the classroom. If we had devices on the back of the carts, if we had devices on carts in the back of the classroom, the amount of time that we would have students have to go back to get them, not to mention the fact that they're moving from class to class throughout the course of the day, logistically, it would be impossible to do. So having them there, but knowing when they're should be used made very good sense. Laptops weren't open unless they were needed and driven by teachers. Just take a moment to show how our daily use of technology helps prepare our students for online standardized tests. This is a slide that shows the various types of standardized tests that our students take starting in second grade. But if we think of things like click, drag, and highlight, helping students develop type responses, work with data, digital navigation, and pacing, all of these are things which I hope you saw in the slides previously will help prepare our students in low-stake ways in everyday lessons so that when they arrive at the test, they feel comfortable, fluent, and confident in using the tools to do their very best. So lastly, I attempted to show you how we scaffold digital platforms for students. So when they graduate from New Canaan High School, they graduate with an understanding of and is facility with a learning management system. So as students move from 8th grade into high school, they use Schoology. It adds grade books, discussions, much richer assignment types, etc. And it mirrors the types of workflows and learning expectations that students will see in college. And I put a sample of a couple of learning management systems, the top 3 ones that are used by most colleges and universities. We think that this is a gradual, developmentally appropriate progression to help our students prepare for that college and university environment after they leave us. So just to wrap up, our approach to technology, I hope you see, is never about screens for the sake of screens or technology for the sake of technology. It's about safe, purposeful, and flexible use of resources that amplifies learning at every grade level. So we're not really chasing the latest, greatest gadget or tool. We're really making sure that the technology fits the needs of our students and the curriculum that we're teaching, so that we can make sure that our students are prepared to thrive in school, college, and in a rapidly evolving world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Matt.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Appreciate that. I just wanted to clarify one thing you mentioned about the Chromebooks in 5th grade.
Yeah.
You're saying that for next year they won't be with the students, and then how does that apply to 6th grade as well? I didn't catch that.
So I think you had asked the question about 5th grade. Mm-hmm. And so I had heard that, and we went back and I actually had some conversations with the teachers in 5th grade, and we reflected, how is the technology being used? The first thing they had said is that it's not necessary for the tool to go home for them. Most of their homework that they get is not on technology, okay? They feel like if it was on a cart in the back of the classroom, they could still accomplish the learning objectives that they already have in place, and that they could manage it realistically. With that said, there may be a time where a student wants or needs to bring that tool home, and they can do so. But because of the way that 5th grade is structured, it's more easy for a student to go to their homeroom and grab the device and take it home with them.
And great, I agree with that. And then I guess for 6th grade, how does that, when you mentioned that it would be cumbersome to do a cart in the back of the room, were you specifically talking about 6th grade or 7th or 8th grade? What was?
I think we're talking 6th grade, 6th grade on. Right? Right on. So because they're rotating, that was my day in the life piece, if they're going from class to class to class, I don't know how we would be able to have a central location where they could grab the device when they need it, and put it back. If a student, in the example, is in science at the end of the day, didn't need it until but knew they had needed for their homework, they have to go back to get it in a specific place. Logistically is very hard to do. So we really do envision making sure that students bring the devices back and forth with them, or starting in 6th grade moving forward.
But what if they didn't use their own specific device? For example, if each classroom was equipped with, let's say, I don't know, 15 or 20, however many students, and that way you don't have to go back to a different classroom to retrieve yours, you could just use one that's available, because it's a common, it's Google Classroom, it's all cloud-based, right? And so it's not like they need their specific device.
Yes,
as their function.
and what I would say to that is, what we've experienced in the past, now this is going back to when we knew we had them on carts. There's a difference in how students treat the technology resources when it's their own versus when it's just a tool in the back of the room and they grab it. So some of this is a consideration of students care more about the tools when they realize it's assigned to them. And it helps us make sure that the resources that we purchased for them, actually we get more life out of them.
Right. That's actually a perfect segue to my next question. One other thing I mentioned in that budget workshop, if you recall, is sort of studying the possibility of sort of a BYOD type of setup for the Saks Middle School, right? And if we could offer a wholesale pricing and discounting to the parents, and obviously make accommodations for those who aren't able, but wouldn't that actually solve both of our problems in that they would treat it as their own because it is, and their parents had paid for it, and then it alleviates some budget for that, and also we don't have to worry about the refresh cycle as frequently.
So the other wrinkle with that is, and we experience this to a degree at the high school, once you have a BYOD environment, it's incredibly hard to manage the resources for those students. So if you think of ClassLink, if you think, because we can manage all of those devices centrally, we have a tremendous amount of control to ensure safety and it's safe and appropriate. So if we had a BYOD environment, we could not have a GoGuardian tool for teachers to use to monitor how students are using the devices within the classroom. There's a little bit of a give and take. So we choose this, the way, it may be something worth revisiting and looking into again, but we arrived at this spot because we really felt like the one thing we wanted to make sure is that as we have students start to expand their use of technology, that we can manage it and control it as much as possible.
Okay, thank you. Oh, by the way, I'm going to out my 5th grader here in front of the whole town, that he showed me last week a way to get on Netflix on his Chromebook. So there's back doors.
So you and I will talk later.
I was going to say, they know computers better than I do, so. Thank you very much.
I do want to just also add that the students must take the Smarter Balanced and Next Generation assessments on a school-owned device. So as a matter of fact, right now, as our juniors are taking the Next Generation assessment, they have to take it on a school device. So unlike the SAT, the PSAT, and the AP, which is all driven by College Board, and they can download the Blue Book app, and they can take it through the Blue Book app, they can't do that on their own device. So it has to be a school-owned device.
And how do we provide those for juniors?
We use our labs. We have a cart. We try to get as many extra devices.
Scrounge around as many, okay.
Yeah, it's a challenge, and they do take it at different times depending on when they're taking APs, and sometimes we'll try to get certain NGSS in with certain grade levels before APs will start. So maybe the kids that are juniors that are sitting in the chem class may take it before AP exams begin. So we try to get it all accomplished. It's quite a puzzle to get the juniors to get it all completed. Where over at Saks, you have the grade levels on a schedule. And years ago, when we had carts, it was like squeaking by to get Saks done, because literally you couldn't test multiple grade levels at once. You couldn't test classes at once. So it was Jill's class got tested, then Darlene's class got tested, and then the carts ran up to 6th grade, and then they got tested there. It took us forever. So now it's much more fluid, and kids aren't spending as much time taking the assessment or feeling like they're taking the assessment.
Oh, great.
Thank you for the presentation, Matt, and I'm thrilled to hear that 5th grade is not required to bring them back home and back and forth every day. I think that's fantastic. A few observations just from being a parent. Strings, I think it would be great if we could print out music instead of having the kids pop their iPad up. I know I was so excited when my son came home saying he wanted to play strings, but then I found out that he was looking at his iPad for the music, and it kind of was like, no. And I love that it is on Google Docs, because I can go on, and when I'm at home, I print out the music for him to practice, which is not too frequently, but I still print it out. But if in school, if they could do it not on their iPad, I'd love for them to get a break from looking at a screen, because it can lead to headaches and vision problems and sleep disorders. And then another area where I've noticed there's a lot of screen time is in library. And I know I've gotten that feedback from a bunch of parents that in library, they go in and all the kids are just on their screens. I'm sure they're doing research or something, but, and then two more things. So I know I've mentioned before indoor recess. I asked both my kids today, and they both did watch shows during indoor recess. And I know that's something we're gonna have to figure out, because I know the teachers usually get a break then, and the recess monitors are outside with the kids at recess while the teachers have their breaks, which they definitely need. But what can we do about that? What can we, that's gonna be kind of a think tank to figure that out, but just an observation. And then a question. So I've noticed that we don't really do spelling tests or spelling bees or anything spelling related. Is that like a thing of the past now? Is that because when the kids get older, they just type it in and there's a red squiggly line and they click on it, boop, 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 and everything's changed? Is there a different reason? I'm just curious.
So they learn their encoding and their decoding together.
Okay.
And that goes back to foundations.
Okay.
So they learn how to sound the word out, and they also learn how to spell the word simultaneously. Okay. And so when they're doing their foundations assessments, that's where the spelling kicks in. So what are the phonics skills that I have learned, and how am I now writing those phonics skills? So can I say them, and can I spell them?
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I own that heavily, so no comment.
Thank you for the presentation. So my question is, how much do teachers have choice to use various different applications when they're going through a particular unit? Or do they not really have choice, and it's really focused on, in that unit you use this particular tool if you're trying to teach one particular thing?
I would say teachers have a fair amount of choice in deciding which resources they use, and there are key, they have identified specific areas within units of study where technology really is something which they want to leverage. So for example, I go back to the 6 through 8 ELA. When they do their final performance tasks, students can choose to use technology, but the fact that that's a choice is intentional, right? So because we want to give students that option to perhaps create a podcast rather than something else, right? So teachers, and for example, the parlay example I gave you there was one where a teacher saw a need and had the flexibility to pursue that. So it's both.
I think what's important is the tool is only as good as the software. And actually, where we're really spending a lot of time reviewing the software yearly is right before the budget. So in October, we're really spending time talking about the softwares that we have, how much use is that software getting. We look at our class links, we look at our Go Guardian, we interview teachers, we work with teachers. Some of the best software that we have actually comes from the next person that's going to be presenting to all of you, because she will find a software that's out there that is really amazing, that could be used with special education students, and then you realize it can be used with all students. And so we have some great softwares that I know she'll touch upon as we move into the next presentation too.
Okay.
Thank you. Also echoing what others have said, thank you for the work you've done to look at fifth grade and see what possible changes in terms of kids not bringing the technology home on a regular basis. I did want to say I've personally seen several ways in which the technology has been phenomenal. I see it a lot in the Google check-ins, a lot of the science simulations, the use of Canva for infographics. I definitely see a lot of places where the tech is being used in a way that is, value add and could not be done on pencil and paper. But I appreciate the continual look at the balance and making sure that we're not using tech when the same thing could be accomplished or done the same or is in some ways better to do on pencil and paper. I was wondering one thing around the way that tech can potentially be used for differentiation, and I was just curious if there are ways in which sometimes if students need reinforcement on something that the tech is used that way, or if there's students who are ready for extensions that there can be they can go and do something on the tech that you can allow for the teacher to differentiate between different groups in the classroom.
Definitely. I think that many of the examples I shared with you earlier are used not just are used to differentiate based on student needs, right? So, for example, I think a little bit about the manipulatives one. It starts off with the actual physical manipulatives, but there may be some differentiation where a student may need additional practice, and the technology can actually help provide that practice without having to maybe necessarily break out all of the resources, et cetera. So any of those up there can be used for differentiation for students.
Great. Also, the learning management systems allow you to send out different tasks to different students.
Okay.
So it's just another feature that we can do through those.
Yeah, great. I'm also interested in Go Guardian. I think it's in the range of a year or so that we've been using it. I'm not sure exactly, but what has the implementation of it been like? And you showed an example of a teacher being able to look at the screen and see individual students' usage of technology in the classroom. I'm wondering, is that the majority of teachers? Is it more, individualistic? How has the rollout of that tool been and the teacher use of it as a way of seeing what students are using the tech for when they're in the classroom?
I think that the use of it has been it's been a big success. Right. And first of all, it started with teachers saying we need a tool to be able to make sure that we can have a sense of where the students are, how they're using their technology. I would say the majority of our teachers are using it. Right. There are, and we have data as well as who's using it or not, and we look at that data.
Mm-hmm. Great. I'm also interested in knowing, as you look forward, what you potentially see as where you might look to make adjustments. It sounds like, there's always new software coming online, so there may be opportunities to say, hey, there's something great out there that we might want to add. And also this, the role of saying, well, maybe this, we should adjust this and this doesn't need to be, done with technology. It could be done with pencil and paper. And as a part of that, I also wanted to raise, Matt had raised in the fall around fifth grade. One of the things that I've noticed is that students tend to take their devices home on breaks, and I was wondering if that's another place that we maybe, I don't know if it's possible and what the logistical challenges would be, but to not have students need to have the technology with them during periods where we don't anticipate they're going to need to use it, and that could go beyond fifth grade.
That's certainly worth looking into and having conversations about. I want to go back to, every year, as Jill had mentioned, we start with reviewing every software license that we have from the year before. And we have conversations about, is it still valuable? Is it still meeting the needs for our students? And we get down to adjusting down to the license sometimes. So we're very careful and methodical about making sure that the assets that we have are actually being used for the purpose which we had intended them to be purchased for. And Jill had mentioned, we have these sparks of opportunity, whether that's from people like Ashley and seeing something that works well with students that she works with. We have really forward-thinking teachers that go to conferences and workshops, technology integrators, librarians, administrators who come back and say, hey, look, have you thought about using this? That's where we lean on our curriculum coordinators a lot. Our budget conversations start with the coordinators and saying, what's the learning that's going on? What are the needs that you see? And are there resources that you've been hearing and are testing out that you think might be useful for us to consider?
Great. I would just reiterate, I would imagine that you're in luck. You're never going to be out of a job because technology is always changing. So the need to continue to find that balance where the technology is useful and where it's not is going to continue to happen. So I'm glad to hear we've been doing it. And I always would want to hear more about how we continue to find that balance where the tech can give our students opportunities they wouldn't have otherwise, but also not be used when it's, when there's other pencil and paper ways or, like physical ways of achieving the same goal.
Right, definitely.
So, thank you.
Thank you for this. This is great. What is our current stance on the use of AI, especially as it starts to penetrate some of the platforms that we're using, Google, Canva, et cetera? I know we've been monitoring it and sort of evolving our policy. Can you give us an update on where it stands and how we are either encouraging or not encouraging students to use it?
Sure. Any tool that we've already purchased that has data privacy agreement with that might incorporate aspects of AI, like Canva, they're safe for our students to use. So there are a couple of them, Canva being one of them. Right now, we're piloting Magic School for teacher use K-8, for teacher and student use 9-12. And we have pilot experiences there. That is a data privacy secure platform. And so we've done a lot of work with trying to train our teachers so they become comfortable with using AI first and foremost. And then we've done a lot of partner collaborating with our technology integrators, our librarians at the high school level, with teachers that want to be using AI with students to plan out what that looks like and how they're using the tool in a way where it's not supplanting the learning, but it's supporting the learning.
We had an AI committee meeting last week and we're thrilled to see a group of students come as well who just started up an AI club, and they're meeting regularly they get together with ideas, they break out, do something with it, get back together, and then share what they just experienced and what they learned. And so that the interest is definitely growing amongst the kids and finding ways to use it productively and help in a helpful way and not as a substitution for their learning. So, yeah.
So does that mean that we are starting to move towards training them on how to prompt and how to, you do data analysis through AI? Is that ultimately where we're?
Yeah, what we're primarily seeing now, based on the conversations I heard from the high school group at the AI committee, they're really developing some pretty sophisticated chatbots that are serving specific functions with kids. For instance, they've trained a chatbot to review students' papers, give feedback, but not rewrite, not just to sort of prompt the kids to find areas of improvement. Our world language teachers are using it quite a bit for students to record and then receive feedback in real time from a native type speaker in order to practice back and forth and things like that. I'd say we are at a place where in some pockets we are doing some prompting, helping students learn how to create the best prompts. And again, they're working through chatbots that are being developed for specific tasks that have a significant number of guardrails created around them.
Right.
And one of the really great outcomes of the conversation for me was understanding how teachers are looking closely at what the objectives of their lessons are, and then seeing if there are opportunities for, say, AI to plug in to do some of the other lesser important tasks with kids to give them more time on task at those most important objectives. There's an art example that's just, I think, an excellent illustration of that, where students would do research around some artists, pick one, and then work to sort of replicate their imagery and work. Instead of it being a research lesson, they created that chatbot, limited the choices. Kids could go in, ask questions, get feedback from that, and then spend more time doing the actual artwork. So the teachers are really being very creative and finding opportunities to design and develop those tools for kids to use using a variety of different platforms.
That's great. Awesome.
Hi, thank you so much. I just have a quick question in the younger grades about, I don't even actually know what it's called, but typing efficiency. Like, so as my kids have gotten older, I feel like they all text when they type. Like, it's just like 1 or 2 fingers and not like an actual typing fluency with the keyboard. And I know that I talked to our elementary school librarian, and it seems like that is kind of how Pebble Go and some of those other ones, it is more of like because it's a tablet, like a texting kind of interface. Do we have a curriculum for teaching them how to type on a keyboard? Like, is that, I remember doing that. Like, that's how old I am. I remember doing that. Is that something that we
So we teach within our technology class, we teach them keyboarding skills, right?
Okay.
We reinforce the home row, right? The challenge is that students will, you can't glue their fingers to ASDF, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we we have a variety of different tools platforms that we use, K2 and then 3, 4. It's explicitly taught and practiced within the technology class. But like any skill like that, it's repetition, right?
Sorry, within the technology, so like a special, like on
Yes,
on
right. So they have a technology special which they go to, and that's one of the skills that they teach. It's usually incorporated into the lesson day. So in an hour lesson, a portion of that might be typing, right? And we're not going to spend all of our time teaching typing. But the challenge is to try to get the students to continue to practice those skills outside of the technology class. So we've been trying to do some challenges at schools where encouraging students to try to do like a typing challenge outside, and they can earn points, etc. We also don't want to do it where students feel anxiety about doing that. So we try to encourage that. But yeah, we recognize that it's a skill that students need to be fluent in and not feel like they can't share out their thoughts quickly and easily even when they're typing. But we do teach it, K4. Yeah.
And then just along that line, how, and maybe this is in the next presentation, but how often do we use like talk to text, or like how often is that? Are we next one? Okay, that's it. I gotcha. Okay, then
Ashley will do a better job at that than I will.
But I do have a really quick question for Jill, because I just I wanted to go back a second to the spelling. So I understand that we back into it through foundations, and that's very research based and much more effective with the phonics and decoding. But I think I don't know who asked it. I know. Do we do the autocorrect, or is our younger curriculum or younger tech without the autocorrect to help students learn how to spell?
So the autocorrect is not on the devices until they get to middle school.
Okay.
So, I mean, I do know that some kids figure little workarounds in Google, and all of a sudden you see it on their autocorrects, but we try not to put the autocorrect on those devices, because even when they're taking the Smarter Balance, there is no autocorrect. They have to learn how to read their answer and make sure that their answer makes sense, because oftentimes their brain is going faster than their fingers can move.
Right.
And so after they do an open-ended response, it's taking that moment to read what they wrote. Is that actually what they wanted to say before they go to hit submit? And so it is important for them to learn that skill of editing.
And then how does that apply to grammar, like especially as we get to middle school? Because I think something that I also see really common is our kids only type in like bullet point or these massive run-on sentences or very little structure, or especially even I sometimes see my older daughter, her email exchanges with their teachers, and I'm like, what? This is not an email. Like, it's just words.
So grammar is directly taught starting in kindergarten. It's one of our Common Core standards, but it is really through the paper pencil. And that's how you teach grammar. And it's really, when you get to the computers, it's all about learning how to edit.
So I guess my question is, do we do an autocorrective grammar in middle school as well? It's the blue line or what, like, is there Grammarly, or like, what are we
The Grammarly's not turned on in the middle school. I'm just looking over just to confirm.
No, we don't have Grammarly, no.
Okay. Great, thank you.
So it's all about teaching them how to edit.
Edit. Perfect.
Thank you very much. And moving on to assistive technology update with Ashley Tremblay, please.
Just before you start, I know Ashley hasn't presented before the board before this board, and Ashley has been with us several years, a long time, as our assistive technology specialist. And then recently she shifted her role from purely assistive technology to our teacher of the visually impaired, which, as you can imagine, there's a lot of assistive technology in that role as well. And then when Ashley made that shift, we brought on Eddie Lopez as another assistive technology specialist. And she's going to talk to us tonight about how we can, leverage technology to support the needs of students with learning disabilities.
Thank you so much. I actually haven't presented in 10 years. So when I went back to look at my presentation, I was like, wow, the technology has changed a lot. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk about how assistive technology is used to empower student success. I'm really passionate about this field, so bear with me. What is assistive technology? It's actually made up of two parts. The first part being service and the second part being devices. I'm asked all the time, what do you do? What is it? This is my definition. It's a job, which is a service, to find something, it's really anything, that helps a student to do a task that might otherwise be challenging or even impossible. In 2004, IDEA actually made a legal definition, which I think is one of the best definitions out there. So device is any item, piece of equipment, or product system, whether acquired commercially, off the shelf, modified, or customized, that is used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of children with disabilities. So literally anything. Duct tape is assistive technology. Anything, you name it, and it's assistive technology. The other part is service, and literally any service that directly assists a child with a disability in the selection, acquisition, and use of an assistive technology device. The term includes evaluation, purchasing, this is my favorite part, selecting, designing, fixing, customizing, adapting, applying, retaining, repairing, or replacing. Like, did they miss any words in that? Coordinating, training, and technical assistance. So again, anything, and we have to do anything to make it happen. What types of disabilities? So a lot of people think most disabilities are the ones that we can see physically, and that's not actually true. Most disabilities are unseen, and all disabilities have access to AT. Any and every disability has access. The areas of assistive technology, as you can imagine, if we need any device and we have to provide it in any way, the areas are broad. So we have AAC communication, any area of academics, math, reading, science, writing, organization, executive functioning, that's a really big one, sensory, general, any task, that's it. Vision, hearing, recreation, leisure, seating, position, mobility. Really everything. So what are our goals for our students? To promote independence, that is really primary. Improve self-confidence and academic performance, right? Because they know that they can't do something. We want to give them the self-confidence that they can do it. Increase classroom participation and peer engagement, right? Have them be part of the classroom. Have them be part of their peers. Provide equal access to education. I am really passionate about this. And then ultimately empower students to be the best versions of themselves. Okay, how do we achieve these goals? Lofty, right? So we start with our digital resources, and as Jill mentioned, I bring a lot of programs into this district. I look at them and then I say to Matt, we can get this district-wide and it saves us money, but it also meets the needs of so many kids, and they don't have to stand out because it's available to everybody. It's universal, right? It's a universal tool. Elevators are universal. Doors that open, these are universal tools available to everybody. However, we do have resources that are for specific needs if we need them. devices. Again, we start with the one devices. We're so fortunate that we have that in this district. However, if they don't meet the need, we then look at iPads of all sizes, Chromebooks. We have a variety, iPods, activity watches, visual timers, you name it. It's probably in our office somewhere. And finally, the piece that puts it all together is the service. And that's, the consult and the training that's provided by myself and my wonderful coworker, Eddie Lopez. So here's some examples of solutions that work with our students. So first, for communication, that includes verbalizing needs, wants, feelings, expressions, communicating with others, reducing behaviors due to communication breakdowns. Some of the tools that we use are tactile communication tools. So here are some examples of that. For students with visual disabilities, they need a way to communicate. We then try to move to some, again, visual communication. These are cards that I made. And this is my little student. He is actually deafblind and nonverbal, and I needed to come up with a way for him to communicate. He's so smart. This was the first day with this pad, this menu of his cards, and I always start with food for any type of communication because it's so motivating, right? And so this is snack time, and he has learned, whoops, my video.
Mangoes? Okay. Yeah, it fits perfect.
So he's learning to use the card to tell me what he wants. We now have a binder that's alphabetical because I have so many cards for him, and pretty much all of his toys are on there, and that really took no time at all to do. Most of our nonverbal students do have iPads. This is one of my seniors.
Andrew, what are you excited about?
Graduation.
And I really emphasize that the kids take their devices, give them names. It's your talker, it's your words, it's your voice. You take your words with you. You bring them in the cafeteria, on the playground, in art class, in computer class. I don't care. You need these. And so it's great when the teachers are on board, when parents are on board. It just makes a huge difference in the lives of the kids. Math and writing I put together because I feel like they kind of go together. So the tasks that are difficult for kids could be writing numbers, reading word problems, drawing shapes, seeing the problems, calculating facts, and then writing, physically writing, spelling, written expression, and then just access. This is a student who uses eye gaze
820
and a digital calculator.
equals.
Equals 995.
Yes!
So
Check your work.
He's doing the digital calculation for his peers to check their work. And the fact that eye gaze is on an iPad right now is totally incredible, right? Apple released it 2 versions ago that other companies could use it, and now have it all embedded in their own. And literally that's just unbelievable because that's technology that's so expensive that really was not accessible to students, and now it is, and it's phenomenal. This student actually has 2 iPads. He uses his AAC to write, and then he copies it. He has a button that copies it to his other iPad. So it's air copy and paste. It's phenomenal. It's awesome. You asked about dictation. We definitely use dictation. I actually was with a 2nd grader today who broke an arm and needed to use dictation. What's phenomenal about this is, again, when I was going through the presentation 10 years ago, it was Dragon dictation, which was very expensive and took hours and hours to train. And now it's on every single device. It's universal. It's in Google, right? It's just a tool in Google. So it takes away barriers. It's just broken all the barriers and said, you can use it. I use it if I don't know how to spell a word. I use it if, whatever. I use it all the time. We do have word prediction for students that need it. We do have some students that need that word prediction support because they're still learning their phonics and they can't get the word that they actually need just by typing. We have kids that need to type for various reasons. I have a lot of high schoolers that seem to break their dominant arms or hands or fingers, and so they need to type. It's just a thing. Or they have a physical disability and they need to type. We have students that need picture support while they're writing. Access to digital materials. We have CAMI, which is a universal tool, so students can open up a worksheet or their math workbook and type on it, draw on it, talk into it. They can voice record into it. I think my favorite is Equatio. Again, it's available to every student in the district. So my high schoolers who hurt themselves can talk into their math equations and it types it and they just paste it into Google Doc. Like, it's so cool. You can also write it and it puts it in, but I just think it's so cool. It does a lot more than that, but again, it's literally for anybody that needs it.
800.
Okay. For reading, tasks include physical access, visual access, comprehension, decoding, fluency, translation. We have Learning Ally across the district now. So any student can have it if they need it, which again is amazing. We have teachers at Saks who have their whole class. They tell me at the beginning of the year, I want my whole class on it. I'm like, okay, great, I'm doing it. And then they have book clubs where everybody's using it for in that book club if they're reading that book. And so nobody has to stand out. We have Bookshare, which is a little bit more specific for kids with disabilities. Text-to-speech is really becoming more universal too. It's in CAMI, it's in Read and Write. Again, we have it across the district. There's nothing special about it. We have apps like VoiceStream that you can adjust the font, the size, the spacing, the color, how many lines you see, you name it, you can adjust it, and that really helps. It helps kids with attention, it helps kids with visual needs. It's a great tool. We have lots of translation tools. Diffit is actually a tool that's used by teachers for differentiation. They can put an article in, a piece of text, writing, and they can differentiate for the grade level of reading. So they have this article, and they know they have some kids that are not reading on grade level or reading above grade level, and they can then send it out via Google Classroom or Schoology. And again, nobody needs to know that they are different. And we also have reading pens, but to me, when you can look in a classroom and you don't know who's using the assistive technology, that's a win. In science, I added science. I didn't keep social studies out on purpose, but this was like super exciting this year. I had to visually make a diagram of that green leaf intersection and for a student with a visual impairment, and so this is 3D printed. And it actually went on to other kids in the class, and they got to play with it and turn it around and see it and feel it and experience that green picture in 3D. So that was pretty exciting. And then we have a lot of other resources available. Executive or organization and executive functioning, I think this is probably our largest area of need, right? So we talked a lot to kids in the middle school and high school about using their digital calendars. I tell them, I'm like, this is your practice for college. You have 4 years to practice with me, and then I'm not going with you to college. I say that to my own kids too. I'm not going with you. But you need to figure this out. You need to know how to color code. You need to put in reminders. you need to use this tool. And they can start in, when they get their Google accounts in 3rd grade, because the Google assignments go into the calendars. And I tell them, do your parents use a digital calendar? Probably. It's a really good tool. You might want to use it. You can put your tasks in there. We have picture schedules for students who may not be readers yet, who speak another language, whatever the need. And then I have had the task to make tactile schedules, and these boxes were actually 3D printed, saved us a lot of money, but that's a calendar for a visually impaired student. And then last but not least, we have all of these friends. SIRI, don't say it because it might send somebody's device off in here, but we can set timers, we can set reminders. I know in my house, the reminder for take the trash out goes every Thursday at 4 p.m. I know my kids are home and they're gonna hear that reminder, and it's not mom saying it, it's the device in the house that says it. You can turn on reminders by time, date, location, so you can set it like, when I'm arriving at school, I need to remember to turn this in, or, when I'm arriving at home, I need to remember to get mom to sign this. You can, anything with these, all of them. They all do pretty much the same things now. Sensory, some kids have trouble sitting at circle time, sitting at their desks, fidgeting, they need pressure, different lights. The district put in dimmers in all the classroom, which is just phenomenal. I know sound is coming soon, but we have to meet the needs of all the kids in the classroom. Recreation and leisure is huge. I don't want any student to feel that they can't play games, they can't listen to music. I created a 3D printed AAC device, so the doll could have the device as well as the student. I know American Girl is now doing that. They were a little bit, later than me, but it's okay. They're doing it now. It's good. They also have hearing aids for them. But really, we want them to be a part of everything, and we make it happen. Seating, positioning, mobility, standing, sitting, lying down, walking, running, biking. It really doesn't matter what the student needs to do. We will help them be able to do it. And it's great when they can get on those bikes and it's an adaptive bike for them, or they can get on their little walkers and walk, and they're so happy. It's just great. General, again, is literally anything. Kebby is a favorite. That's our robot. We have one, and he travels to all the schools. Thank you, transportation, if you're listening. We had to implement that this year because it got a little bit crazy to bring him around. So he goes to 4 of the schools. He doesn't go to the high school. But the kids love it when Kebby comes and they know his day. Vision is a growing area. And one of the things I'm really working on is making classroom materials accessible. So sometimes our high school teachers like to copy over and over and over again, and the copies, you can't see them. So I work hard to make them accessible for anybody. We have students who use eye gaze. This student has a reading program.
Good job, Evan. Good job.
His first day with it, he was a little bit distracted by the teacher. So, but it's a great program. It's eye gaze and reading. We have a lot of different braille and tactile objects. This is 3D printed. It's a, the stacking rings. This is a sample of that. I had to figure out how to make the months of the year tactile, so that was 3D printed. So a lot of 3D printing, and actually in today's Tech and Learning, they had a whole article on assistive technology and 3D printing. That was pretty exciting. For hearing, however child needs to hear, listening to peers, listening to video, paying attention, processing. We have closed captioning. This is my little buddy. He just got these hearing aids, and I spent the day with him getting him to be able to wear them. And then Mom sent me this that afternoon. I'm sure whoever's familiar with Stu Leonard's will recognize. He heard it for the first time, and it was just unbelievable. I had to share it. How we move forward with assistive technology, we are always adapting. Every day we're adapting. We use the digital resources. We use the one-to-one devices. And we really work to have inclusive classrooms with engaged students. That's really my primary focus. And we're at the end.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure.
I'm not sure if you noticed, but Ashley likes what she does.
Yeah. Pretty fired up. Phil?
So thank you so much for this, and I think probably more importantly, thank you for the passion and energy and what feels like relentless positivity you bring to the district and all these kids. I'm sure it makes a world of difference to them. I'm just curious how many nonverbal students we have in the district that you're working with.
Oh man, I gave you that number. I would say 30 to 40. 30 to 40.
Wow.
Yeah, we have a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. More non-verbal than visually impaired right now, but we're gaining. We're gaining on both. But yeah, no, we have a lot.
Thank you.
Sure.
Matt?
Thank you for this. A couple questions. So how often do you determine sort of the efficacy of the assistive technology with a specific student? Is it just annually with the 504 assessment, or do you do assessments during the year to sort of determine how effective it is?
All the time. The teachers will contact us, see how it's going. We'll touch base with the students all the time.
Are the parents able to request a different technology, or is it mostly teacher-led? Okay.
Yeah, no, parents can request. We get requests from parents that they want this or that. Sometimes I have to encourage parents to use the assistive technology. But yeah, no, it's anybody can, parents, teachers, the students themselves.
Perfect. And then I guess another question would be, if a parent, what's the prerequisite for receiving assistive technology? I mean, do you have to have and maybe this is a better question for Bill, but.
You have to have a 504
You have to have a
or an
504?
IEP.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we work so hard to have so many universal tools available to us that many students in the RTI process have access to things that they need. And then these actually have become designated supports now on the Smarter Balance. So there's actually very few accommodations on Smarter Balance. Most of them are designated supports, which are available to any student that needs it.
Perfect, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering where you go to get your ideas about new technology. Are there organizations, conferences that you go to, organizations that you belong to, and do we fund you well enough to do it?
Don't ask that last question. Yes, we.
That's your salary. But
We have ATIA. Eddie was just at Innovation Ability Expo. We have access to NEAT in Hartford. They are a little bit far away, but they send out information, and then I'm obviously always reading things that come in, and we belong to a AT focus group that is for Fairfield County, and then we have a state one. So yeah, it's constant, right? We're feeding off of each other and sharing ideas, because assistive technology has never grown as fast as it is right now. It's truly unbelievable. I thought it was fast 10 years ago. That wasn't fast.
Well, thank you for all you do for all those kids. It's
Sure.
terrific.
Thank you. Your enthusiasm is infectious. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about there's sort of the students who are going to need ongoing support, and you would expect that they will need that throughout their time within our schools, versus the students that come in on a temporary basis and need support, like you referenced, like injuries, things like that. I'm wondering if that makes a large portion of what you do, or if it's primarily the first category of like.
Oh no, it's the first category. I just giving you examples of how it can impact anybody at any time. But no, it's we have students that we see weekly, monthly, bi-monthly. Yeah, it really depends on the need, and we assess every student's need, and sometimes they get to a point where they don't need us anymore, but they can always check in with us if needed. So it's per student, it's totally individualized.
Okay. And are most of the supports that you provide supports that are meant to fill a need on an ongoing basis, as opposed to sometimes a support can be kind of a scaffolding to that eventually a student would grow out of needing? I think of that mostly in the executive function area, where some of the supports you describe, I mean, some of them we all use like alarms all the time, but others, students grow into hopefully, more managing their schedule, their homework, et cetera. And I'm just wondering if that's true for executive function, but as well as for some of the other areas where the support is a scaffolding to get to an outcome where they wouldn't need a support.
Yeah, that's especially true in reading and writing. So students might not be ready to physically write, type, but they have so many ideas and they just need to get it out. So they might start with dictation, and slowly we fade that away. Same with word prediction. They might need that, and then slowly we fade it away, for sure, absolutely. Reading, it comes and goes when they need online access. Sometimes it's based on their vision of the day or the moment. Sometimes they need it to read grade level until they can catch up. So it's always changing, and we're always making sure that it's the least that they need. We don't overpower them because the student's not going to use it, right? So we don't give them too many choices of things to use because they are not going to use it. We're not going to give them too many apps or too many programs. So we give them the right amount and change as they need.
Yeah. And then I would imagine that you spend the majority of your time with the more complex cases. I'm wondering, because a lot of these technologies I could see having wider use. I mean, you talked about general ed, but also I'm just wondering, do you work on a regular basis with all of like the special ed teachers, et cetera? Because a lot of these, you can't be providing the direct service for all of them, right? Like, I would imagine, like, if some of these, like, 3D printing tools take off, like, you're not the person, like, you can't always be the person who's coming up with
Nikolai is my person at the high school. I tell him what I need, and I'm like, I don't have time to figure it out. You go do it. Actually, we probably work with the general ed teachers way more than the special ed teachers because the assistive technology is in the general ed classrooms.
Okay.
So the complex learners, we probably work with the special ed teachers and them, but the students with learning disabilities or really any other disability who are in the general ed classroom, we're helping the teachers learn the tools. And again, because they're universal, sometimes the tech integrators can help too, especially at SACS. Because they know the tools too. And there's great resources on Read and Write. They have a vocabulary builder, they have highlighting, you can highlight in different colors and then extract. So it's all organized for you. There's lots of tools that the kids can use. And for editing, I always tell my own kids, go listen to it, put on text-to-speech, listen to it, and do your editing. Because when we read, we put in our own words, and when someone else looks over it or another device is reading it, it helps.
Great,
So
thank you.
Any other questions? That's great. Thanks so much. Super informative, really helpful. Thank you, both. All right, guys, moving on to comments from the public. Nobody's up. And then announcements and future business.
Sure. Thank you both. Quick announcement, our next meeting will be 2 weeks from tonight, so Monday, May 19th. We will have an update from Dr. Krenti on the CLC and the process therein. It's also the night we'll have Board of Education Appreciation, so don't miss that one. And we'll have our statement of accounts as well. And just for an FYI for the board, we are moving the June 16th Board of Education meeting. That was the night of graduation. I expect to be exhausted that night, as I am after every graduation. So we'll just move it to the 17th instead, so just that next night. School is still in session until Wednesday, the 18th, which will be a half day for us. And just another quick announcement, I just learned today that the grand opening of the new baseball field is scheduled for Wednesday afternoon. So hopefully we'll get some decent weather, and after school on Wednesday, we'll be able to hold our first baseball game on the new field. So congratulations to the NCAF and to the community and all of what it took to pull that together. I know it was quite the undertaking. And having driven by and seen some pictures and taken a look at the whole thing, it's really a spectacular field. So looking forward to getting that in use. And congratulations to our lacrosse team for a win on Saturday over our neighbors to the south.
That's great, thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Matt, second. Matt, all in favor? Meeting adjourned, thank you.
Okay.